Hey guys, what's up? Dingo Crikey here with another commentary video, this time giving my thoughts on the 2015 return of Bionicle. Yeah, I know this video is kind of overdue. Bionicle's been back for like 6 months now, but I wanted to give my thoughts on it. Plus, I've gotten a lot of different requests, a lot of them from my Transformer fans who wanted to know what I think of the return of Bionicle 2015, the sets, and all of that. So I figured it would be cool to do something different on the channel rather than just always Transformer videos, because I do have other interests. And I'm definitely not selling out by doing this Bionicle video, because if you go back to the first videos on my channel, you'll notice they weren't Transformers, they were actually Bionicle. But you probably just want to take my word for it and not watch them, first YouTube videos, series, no real direction, bad writing, and really not worth your time or my embarrassment. But speaking of that, as I mentioned in the title, I'm a longtime Bionicle fan. Those first videos were like back in 2008, and I was a fan way before that. I got into Bionicle in its second year with the Borak, and I wasn't the first person in my house to own them. Actually, my brother got Powerrock as his first Bionicle, and it probably makes him the only Bionicle fan whose first set was a brown one. Still to this day, I have no idea why I picked him. Nothing against Powerrock. But yeah, I immediately fell in love with the Borak and wanted to get Levok. Gahlok was the only one they had at the store the next time I went, so I got Gahlok, and that's pretty much what started it all. Continued to collect all of the Borak, and I loved these guys as a kid. At that time, I had no idea what the story of Bionicle was, other than like the little hints you kind of got in the instruction manuals. So as a kid, I was like coming up with all my own personalities for them, just have fun, whether it was like bowling the Borak, using the head punch gimmick. There was just so much you could do with these guys. They had an awesome build, they were kind of adorable looking, but fierce at the same time in their own special way, and I just kept collecting from there. I went back and bought some of the 2001 sets, but they were already going out of stores, so got the Toa Nuva, the Rockshi, Borak, all of those, and just kept collecting. All in all, I probably have over 200 Bionicle sets. I kind of tried to count it up one day, and that's not including doubles, because I got doubles of a lot of these guys too. Especially in its early years, there was just something really special about Bionicle, which I'm sure a lot of us Bionicle fans felt. I think it was kind of because they brought a lot of different concepts together. Like, they were robots, but they weren't necessarily like Transformers were. Transformers are kind of traditionally like war machines, which was kind of a downside with Transformers for me. Bionicles like presented this whole world where you had villagers. Some of these sets like didn't even have weapons, like the Taraga and the Matoran. They had their disc and stuff, but they weren't menacing. They were just like civilians and old people, as far as the Taraga goes. So it was like this combination between like civilization and then action and fighting. You had the robotic side to it, but then the organic side with all of the different environments, and obviously there's so much color there, which in my opinion it was really unfortunate that they took that away in the later years with the darker colors and then more gray and more silver. It does kind of have to change over time, and I do like some of those later years, but early on, those were like the golden years. It felt so lively and really hit close to home, yet it was kind of mysterious and aloof at the same time. It was just this combination of all these different things, and I don't think you see a whole lot of franchises, ideas, or really movies or shows do that so well as early Bionicle did, just putting all these different things together that really made it special. Now, as far as the story goes, like I said, when I was really young, I didn't get into the story so much, but as time went on, I definitely started following up. Unfortunately, I never read any of the books. I still haven't to date. I've tried to find them at the library and at the bookstores, but between like 2010 and its reboot, it was, not really active, so this stuff just wasn't on the shelves. But I still managed to keep up with the story through online sources like Wikipedia. Bionicle wikis were more preferable because then I could read in depth about the characters and what happens in these books. And then there obviously were the movies. For me, and I know it's this way for a lot of people, I just didn't feel it with the movie so much. They felt like a dumbed down Bionicle. It was just something about the way the characters interacted, the way the world felt, how easy it was to get things done, the fast pacing, even the soundtrack. Now, I like a lot of the music in the films, but it just wasn't the way I seen Bionicle. Like, Matanui Online Game had some really, really cool music. The movies just didn't get the right vibe across. And I don't think it was necessarily because the movies weren't dark enough, because Web of Shadows was a lot darker, and it just felt like the other movies trying to be darker. It was something else. It was the spirit of Bionicle wasn't really there. Still, I do kind of enjoy the movies in their own right. I've seen 1 through 3. I haven't seen The Legend Reborn. From what I have seen, it looks really awful. I can't really say anything good for it. I guess it had a different look than the other films. I was never crazy about the look of the first 3, but I like the look of Legend Reborn a lot less. It was just kind of nasty looking in their teeth. Maybe I'll watch it one day. You guys could tell me in the comment section below whether you think it's worth watching or not. I'd really like to hear. So all of that should kind of qualify me as a Bionicle G1er. I mean, obviously I'm not as into it as some of the other people who have like read all of the books and own every single set and combo that's out there, but I've kept up with the line from 2002. So I mean, as far as G1ers go, there's some Transformer fans who like only watched G1 and they kind of classify as an expert on Transformers when they weren't around for Beast Wars, the Unicron trilogy, anything up until the movies came around. And then they slept through Prime and animated too. So as someone who's been a fan since 2002 with the Bohrok, I have really liked the return of Bionicle so far. It's not perfect, but I think they have done a lot of good things, and it is Bionicle's best year in a very long time. I had a ton of excitement when I knew it was official Bionicle was coming back. I mean, seriously, college wasn't going so great at the time, you know, school, assignments, then work on top of that. None of that mattered once I knew Bionicle was coming back. It was extremely exciting. But the question always is that excitement going to last, you know, once the sets are on the shelves? I mean, it's toned down a little bit, but I'm still, like, in total Bionicle mode. I mean, because I buy Transformers 2 and then, you know, necessary life stuff, I haven't been able to collect all of the sets, but I own 4 of the Protectors, 3 of the Toa, plan on getting the rest of them, and the Summer sets, and so far, I really like them all. Now, Protector of Ice and Protector of Water aren't as great, but just got Protector of Earth the other day, and he is a really, really cool set. Great build. The Toa are, man, they capture so much of the original Toa while not being rip-offs. When I've heard people from LEGO say that they actually took the original designs into account, this is a time I can seriously believe that. You know, they kind of said that with some of the designs in the Transformer films. That's kind of BS, in my opinion. You know, some of them are pretty good. Other ones, they just stretched it so far. Not that I think they have to make it exactly like the original designs in the case of Transformers, but, you know, don't even try to fool us. With Bionicle, they did a really, really nice job. Now, of course, we had some that, like Golly and Liwa, that do look pretty different, especially in the mask. But for me, I didn't really want something that was exactly the same. I mean, from what I have, I love 2001. I think it's an awesome year of Bionicle, but, you know, this is a different year. I want to see different stuff. So, Golly's mask maybe could have been a bit more reminiscent, but even they seem pretty cool so far. And Tahu, man, they did such a nice job on Tahu. It's cool seeing that he's a big scale set, you know, not only taller, but he has a bulky feel. Like some of the Anaika sets, they were really like flimsy and stuff. They were pretty good for stop motion, but as sets themselves, they were like flat and skinny. Tahu's like a big dude. They did a really nice job on his build. Capturing Tahu's personality, I think they did that pretty good too. He's tough looking, but he's not as burly as someone like Onua. And obviously his weapons are really cool. He has a good color scheme overall. I do have a problem with the gold. I hate to say it, but yeah, I'm not such a big fan of that. And also the silver on the other Toa for a few reasons. One thing, I'm not a big fan of metallic colors in Bionicle. I think it should be used in more special occasions like Takanuva or when the Toa get armored up, because what are they going to do now to upgrade these guys? I wish they kind of would have started off with something like simpler looking, made them look a little bit more natural and elemental. Now don't get me wrong, they do signify their elements pretty well, but they really should have toned down on a lot of the armor and stuff because it looks like they're already like war machines. I do like how they have thick builds, but they're a little bit too powerful looking, in my opinion. Especially when their enemies are the skull spiders. I mean, they don't even need to hit them with their weapons. They can just stomp on those things. From there, I may as well go into one of my complaints with these new sets, but I think it's something that Bionicle has kind of done wrong since maybe 2004, more specifically 2005. And that's that almost every set, if not every set, looks like menacing or like a warrior in some way or the other. Take a look at the Protectors. You know, they have these Gatling guns, which are awesome. I think it's a really cool gimmick. But, you know, they look like they could hold off the Skull Spiders on their own. They have these nasty swords and buzzsaws. They're all armored up and buff looking in some cases, like Protector of Fire. And their masks, too, they look kind of menacing, like, you know, they're ready to go to war or something, or, you know, protect the city. That's kind of where I have a problem with where Bionicle has been for a long time now. I liked where it started off, where we had characters like the Turaga. They were the village elders, and that's what they were. That's what they looked like. You had the Matoran. They looked like the citizens who needed protected. You know, you could just have them live out normal lives in Matanui or something when you're playing with them. Everything now, everyone looks menacing. They look like they're going to war, going into battle or something, you know. Even if they're the little civilians, they look like freaking killing machines in some cases. And it kind of goes with the Rahi too. Even in that first year, 2001, when the Rahi were kind of evil because Makuta had control of them, they still looked like they could just be like animals or something. Now every time we see an animal, well, I guess I should say in the later years of the original Bionicle, it had like sharp teeth and claws and just looked like it was willing to like gash someone's eyes out or something. It was cool in the really early years where like one of the mocks you could build, you know, with an instruction manual and stuff. I think it was Pohata and Gali. Anyways, this thing was like a freaking Bionicle cow, and it was derp as heck, but it was awesome because that's what it was, a cow or an ox or something like that, and it wasn't a weapon, it just looked like, you know, a cow without udders, which is definitely a good thing. Now if they were to make something like that, it would like have these massive horns that faced forward that, you know, it couldn't even like eat grass or anything. These things would be so big. It would probably have like claws on its hooves and stuff, probably a rocket launcher propelled to its back. Maybe not with this year, but definitely where Bionicle was going, especially in 2008 and stuff. Everything like has a ton of armor and all these crazy weapons and stuff. We can't just have simple looking stuff. That's something that really bothers me about even Bionicle 2015. Though they've added more colors to give it more life, it still is missing that peaceful feel at points, that simplistic feel that it really needs to hit it home and give that warm and fuzzy feeling of the original Bionicle, and also to set it apart from a lot of other toy lines. Maybe Lego's thinking that it wouldn't sell if they did stuff like that in 2001. And, you know, they're professionals at this, I can understand that. But in my opinion, that would really set it apart from a lot of other toy lines where everything's just about action. So I would love to see them do that, but I don't see that happening with this new Bionicle. I'll get to comparing it year by year in a minute here, but looking at some other pros and cons of these new sets, the mask and head design is something that I really like. I like how the masks have that feel of the original mask as opposed to the mask they bring in with the Toa Metru and then continue like through 2008 and basically the rest of Bionicle's run. I really, really like the style of the mask and the way it fits on the Toa's head. The head sculpt is also cool because it's a different way of attaching the mask and it isn't as ugly as some of the other heads. I mean, those original Matoran heads, let's just say it really takes the cuteness out of those little guys with the big heads and the floppy arms. Other pros, I love the fact that the gears are back. I was a huge fan of the gears and all that playability stuff of those early years, whether it was like the Nuirama being able to swing their wings forward, the Borak with their heads, Toa, the whole game with knocking the mask off. I loved the gears so much, and they just went downhill as the years went on. But I could understand it always was a problem that they got in the way of articulation and stuff. Unless I'm trying to do stop motion, that really wasn't a big problem for me. I guess I'm kind of like a G1er in that way. Like with G1 Transformers, I can't understand why they like them so much when those original toys had so many problems and weren't so accurate. They didn't have all the right articulation. I guess I'm a Bionicle G1er, though I would argue they were better in comparison to the G1 toys, but that's a whole other debate. These new sets, though, find the perfect balance between the gear system and the articulation. I was absolutely astonished with how fabulous it just turned out. I mean, they're able to pose, their arms have a full range of motion, other than the armor getting in the way a little bit, but the gears themselves don't get in the way at all. So, I could sit up at night watching TV playing with the gears on the toys, and then, pose them for displaying purposes. There's just so much cool stuff they did with designing these sets, and the gear function with the articulation was definitely a plus. Plus, we get a lot of other gimmicks, like Protector of Earth has a spinning drill, and then Protector of Ice has the buzzsaw. Just really, really cool stuff, with still making it conventional in modern ways. Also, I do like the weapons, though I can't say they were exactly what I hoped for. Once again, I'm not a fan of how metallic a lot of them look. Don't really like Liwa's axes, but Tahu's fire swords are awesome. Pohata's boomerangs are really cool. Anua's weapons look really neat. Shovels as a weapon, something you don't really hear about that often, but it's brutal, so it's pretty awesome. They do reuse the weapons from set to set, like with Gali and then with Liwa, but that doesn't bother me a whole lot, except in the case of Kopaka's shield. I didn't even know that was supposed to be a shield at first. Those swords are a really, really cool design, but no, they should have given Kopaka a legit shield. Also, along with the pros, I love the fact that there's weapon storage. This is something that Transformers needs to start picking up on as well. Like, there were so many Bionicles in the past that just didn't have this. I mean, even with the Toa Metru, only a few of them did. I love the fact that, like, Tahu can ride his lava board and hold those two gold swords, or put the gold swords in the back. Also, Liwa has this whole system where he can store his weapons. It's all really, really cool. I mean, Protector of Earth can't store his cannon, but poor feller, can't imagine him ever getting a normal job. Okay, I know it's not a great joke, but when a guy has a cannon in his chest, you gotta try something. I mean, as far as the cons, I really hoped there would be more technic in their design, more complexity in the builds. I do kind of like the smooth look, but I would have hoped for something more complex, especially with the Summer Wave. It would have been awesome to see something like those original Rahi, where the bad guys weren't exactly like anti-Toa, like they've sort of been ever since the Borak came along, and then it's just been exemplified with the Paraka when they had similar builds to the Toa. I would have preferred something way different looking, even if it was like the Borak, like a non-Toa-like enemy, sort of like Lord of Skull Spiders. But, we're not going to really get that, so that's kind of disappointing. Some people are going to hate this next point, but I've got to say it, kind of along with the fact that they all look like weapons. We don't really get the cute-looking stuff that we had in 2001. Okay, Matoran with their mask on, those things were really adorable-looking. Even the Borak, I mean, yeah, they were bad guys, but who cares? I mean, ever since 2004, I just felt like they kind of dropped that off. And I think that's kind of a shame. That was a big plus, but maybe that's just me. I mean, also, it doesn't have the same mystical, dark feeling. And that's something that's kind of hard to explain, because I'm not really talking about the dark feeling that we've seen in some of the years like 2006 and 2005. There was something in 2001, once again going back to that specialness of it, where it felt dark yet lively at the same time. It was just that mystery and the music they added with it and the box art that really gave it a mysterious feel. This feels a lot more like a toy commercial. and I'm not such a big fan of that. I like it a lot better than some of the ad campaigns and the looks of, like, I don't know, 2007, but, it definitely isn't up to par with the original Bionicle in that area. It also does feel more kiddie. Some people really hate that, especially in regards to the story. I haven't really touched on the story yet, but I guess I'll get into that. I mean, as far as that goes, I don't have a huge problem with it. I've watched some of the animations, I gotta get caught up with them, but I do enjoy them. Yeah, they feel a little bit dorky, but they're cool in their own way. I listened to an interview with one of the guys who works on them, and, he said they kind of have a low budget, so you can't expect a whole lot. It's kind of like someone trying to push out a stop motion on a limited amount of time with not such good video editing software. And still, as far as the story goes, we haven't really gotten a whole lot yet, because unfortunately we aren't getting something like Madanui Online Game, which for a lot of people really seem to expand their Bionicle experience, but we haven't gotten the books yet. Those will probably add a lot more to the story. Hopefully they do. I know the story is going to be much more simplified than where it was in Bionicle's later years. I think that's a pro because it was really complicated. All these different names, there were so many crazy abilities, it didn't even feel at any level believable. Yeah, I know Bionicle is in a place that can only be imagined, but they really stretched that far. It was no longer like a fun thing like it was in 2001. It was like all these awful powers that the Dark Hunters had to like mutate or disintegrate these people and stuff, and yeah, that was kind of the dark feel that I didn't like. I'm glad that we might not be dealing with that in this new Bionicle. Still, I would like to see them expand upon the world and do lots of world building, even if it isn't going to be as complex and crazy as Bionicle got. Now, going year by year, how do I think 2015 compares to the previous Bionicle? I mean, obviously, years 1 and 2, I don't like it as much. Those years were awesome. They were the heart of Bionicle, and while this new stuff is pretty cool, it doesn't capture that same feeling or come up with something new that is comparable. 2003, a lot of people classify this year with the first 2 years, and I kind of do, but I do feel like it's when Bionicle started to change. Not necessarily for the worst, but, obviously we had the Makuta way more exposed in this part of the story, and also we had the introduction of darker colors with the Bohrok Hull and the Rakshi, a lot more gray. I wasn't necessarily a big fan of that, but those are really good sets still. In comparison to this new stuff, it is hard. I really like these new sets, but I gotta say 2003 is probably a better year in my opinion, though I could see that changing once I get more of the 2015 sets. And I guess I should just mention again, this is a purely opinion-based video, so if you're like, what, the Rakshi were awesome, I love the gray, that's totally fine. I'm not saying it's necessarily bad, but, my opinion. Anyways, 2004, the Telemetro were really strong sets, but some of the other ones that year, not so great. I personally wasn't a big fan of the Matoran, but they weren't necessarily bad sets. The Valky, they were sort of like a poor man's Rakshi. And then the bigger sets that year definitely had some flaws. Now, the story of 2004 I thought was pretty strong. There was a lot of interesting stuff, especially with Valkama's character, Mask of Time. So, I don't know if I could say this New Year's better. As far as the sets go, I could very well see liking it better. I do kind of like the atmosphere of Bionicle 2015. But 2004 does have the advantage that was a lot fuller, as far as the story and how thought up it was. So that's a little bit hard. 2005, no comparison. 2015 is better. I've got to go with the majority opinion here. 2005 was one of my least favorite years. Probably not my least favorite, though. But the big sets like Rudaka, Sidorak, the Compo Voparak, and I love Kitongu. Those guys were all awesome, but Hordika, Visorak, not that great. 2006, I'm not even going to try to make a comparison simply because I have such mixed feelings on 2006. It's totally like a love-hate year. I really like it in some ways, but I really hate it in others. and it is extremely exciting. It's what got me really invigorated about Bionicle, and when I started to really delve backwards into the story and then keep up with it. But it definitely did a lot of things that I didn't like, so that's a hard one to compare. 2007 and 2008, just lump them together. Hands down, I like 2015 better than those years, especially 2008. It was, in my opinion, it was a pretty horrible year. Now, I didn't own a ton of the sets from the summer half. Most of them in the winter half I did own. I liked the kind of demonic looking Fantoka Makutas. Those were really cool. The Toa, they were crap, especially for remakes of the Toa Mata. I'm sorry if you like them, but they just did not capture their essence. I mean, Kopaka didn't even have his shield. They all had like guns and stuff. Golly wasn't wise looking. Once again, they had no idea of her character in mind. At least it didn't seem like that. She looked like this war machine. And Tahu was also kind of bulky, which isn't a problem until you see that Anu is the skinniest out of the Toa. He's like a really flimsy looking dude. And oh man, it's just does not capture the characters. And plus the sets themselves, there was just so much gray and guns and all this technology and stuff, and yeah, I wasn't a big fan of that. Marhi also, I did not like the Toa Marhi. They were basically just, you know, we started getting into that trend of the Anika and the Paraka builds being overused. Everything started to become really boring. They looked really random and thrown together. Braki were pretty cool. They kind of felt experimental. Okay, they definitely felt experimental, but they were cool in their own ways, and so were sets like Nocturne. But yeah, those years there was just a lot they bring in, especially on the technology side and reusing builds and a lot of the holes the sets had. They just didn't have full looks that I think really took away from those 2 years, especially 2008. I wasn't a big fan of that year. 2009 did some good things, was more colorful, added more personality, kind of recreated this world, because we had the different planet and all of that. But still, repetitive builds, a lot of the same pieces being used. So I'm going to say I like 2015 better than 2009 as well. 2009, I feel like it's what the Bionicle reboot could have been, but fortunately wasn't. It was like trying to capture the original feel of 2001 and some of those earlier years, but it was still holding on to like the Anika and Paraka builds. We definitely had a lot of overused pieces, not that many new ones were being produced. We had that nasty Matorn build that we got from 2008 used for the Agory, and yeah, just wasn't a big fan of it. Now, there were some really cool pieces from that year, especially on the white set from the winter half. I can't remember his name for the life of me, but those ice crystal things, those were really cool. Vastus had some cool design aspects, but overall I wasn't a big fan of that year. So, the way I look at it, I'm kind of glad Bionicle ended and had a long break, and now they're bringing it back in 2015 because, in my opinion, it did a lot of good for the toy line. I think it's nice that we got the story rebooted, even though I definitely enjoyed stuff about the later half of the story in the original Bionicle. It was getting really convoluted, and if it's just a reboot, that isn't necessarily a bad thing. We see that with Transformers. A series like Armada, in my opinion, was a good series, and they should have just ended it there. We didn't need Energon and Cybertron continuing it or trying to continue it, because Energon was absolutely horrible and Cybertron plainly just didn't make sense with Armada. So I'm glad they're just rebooting it, because sometimes it's better for things to end. I mean, it has to happen to good things or else they become bad things. And I'm glad to see they're no longer using the Anika and Paraka build. I didn't own any of the Hero Factory sets, but from what I could tell, they're using some of the Hero Factory build aspects, but the gearbox system is a totally new thing, so it is different in its own ways. But either way, for Bionicle, it's new, so I think that's really cool to see. And that kind of brings me to my last topic on this long journey of a video, and that is, what do I think the future is for this rebooted Bionicle? I honestly don't know, but I hope it's very successful, and I hope we see it last a very long time. I mean, I've heard some things that make me think the sales aren't necessarily great. I haven't looked into it a ton, but it definitely seems like Bionicle fans like the sets overall. But it kind of matters whether you can get that mainstream audience or not. I haven't really been able to tell in my area whether they're selling or well. It's not like they have huge displays or anything that are like, okay, this is doing fabulous. But Toys R Us in my area just put up a display for the Bionicles where they used to just have their own section for the longest time. Now they have their own display, so I would think that's a good sign that it's probably selling better. So, now they're giving a display in a bigger section, whereas the other Lego stuff doesn't really have that except maybe Ninjago. I mean, for me personally, I want to see it go on. I really like these sets so far. I plan on buying the future ones, maybe not all of them, just because of a money thing. That's kind of why I don't necessarily mind if like the summer sets aren't great, because I can skip out on a few of them and focus on Transformers a little bit more than jump back to Bionicle. It's kind of difficult when there are two really good lines competing against each other, especially because I'm looking at buying a lot more of Takara figures now. I just bought Stinger a while ago and absolutely love him. Some of the other ones look really cool. And if you're thinking about ones like Age of Extinction Dino, then you better be ready to spend a lot of money. With that said, if they do cancel Bionicle after 3 years, or hopefully not sooner, that would be really bad. For me, there would still be a lot of Bionicle to go back and collect. Like I said, I really like 2001 from what I do own out of the year. I do love watching reviews and just getting hyped about those sets, but some of the ones I did own are in pretty bad condition because, I was a kid and, playing with these in my basement and stuff. They kind of got scraped up and, pieces got lost. So I have rebought a few of them, but, one of my lifelong dreams actually is to just collect everything from 2001. Not just all of the official sets, but also the collectibles and all of the combo models. So that's going to take a pretty long time to make that huge collection of 2001 stuff. If Bionicle gets canceled, that's going to occupy me for a little while. And then 2002 is another year I would like to collect. I don't know about beyond that so much. Maybe sets here and there. I have rebought a few of the Rockshi. But with something like Bionicle, if someone's to collect every single set, every combo model possible, it isn't over because there's 10 years of sets. And you can always make mocks and come up with your own Bionicle stories. Or just, make up your own stories that have nothing to do with Bionicle. I mean, one of my YouTube dreams is eventually to make some web series with mocks. Not necessarily a Bionicle series, but do something with, my own creations from the pieces and then come up with my own story. That kind of thing. But I'm still working on Transformer stop motion, so I don't know if that's ever going to materialize. But that's kind of my thoughts on it. I'll be keeping up with the new Bionicle. I really like it so far. I hope it goes on for a very long time, at least 3 years, and hopefully beyond that. That would be really cool. And if it doesn't, there's lots of Bionicle in the past that I can always go back to. Plus, I didn't even think about it. There's the books. I still have to read those, so, that's lots of stuff to do. Anyways, that's my thoughts on Bionicle 2015. You guys can leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Maybe you're someone who views my videos a lot more regularly. You mainly watch it for Transformers, but if you have thoughts on Bionicle, I'd definitely be interested in hearing that. And also, maybe you're someone new because, you search Bionicle stuff regularly. I'd also be curious to see what you think of these new sets. As a Bionicle fan, do you like the 2015 sets? Do you think they do justice to the original Bionicle? Were you expecting something more like the original Bionicle? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below, and also tell me if you guys would be curious to hear me do more videos on Bionicle. Like I said, mainly my channel is for Transformers, but I definitely don't mind doing stuff on Bionicle, and if there was enough of an interest, maybe I'd create another channel where I can focus on Bionicle and other fictional things as well. Anyways, all I have to say for this one, thanks for watching, stay tuned for regular Transformers news and commentary, and have a good one, guys. See you soon.